Couple big-time announcements for Illini football over the weekend, and spoiler alert, football's not going anywhere.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to a Monday morning edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sunny Verma. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Again, a simple reminder, if you'd like to support the channel, find us on your favorite audio platform. We're available on all of them. Do a quick search for Locked On Illini right here on YouTube, social medias, whatever you use when you have that phone in your hand. Do a quick search for Locked On Illini. Send me a message. It's me on the other end. I'll say hello. Say something nice, say something not so nice, but just keep it constructive. That's all I ask. Again, if you'd like to support this channel, just make sure you hit that like button, and the vibes have to be good. There's no excuse not to hit that like button and that subscribe button right now, because there's no better time to be an Illini fan than it is at this time. And the reason for that, I'll get to right after this. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So I know we're all, for the most part, in basketball mode. We're kind of going through the hangover of celebrating a nice victory over an SEC opponent in the Citrus Bowl. But Illinois football, the good news keeps on coming. We found out over the weekend that J.C. Davis, the starting left tackle of last year's football team, and someone who, because of the Diego Pavia rule, is eligible to come back, has announced that he is indeed going to come back. And now, a commenter on a previous video asked me to clarify what the Pavia rule is. And so I didn't that video. I will do it this time. Essentially, Diego Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, had some JUCO years in his career, and he is essentially suing the NCAA, saying that, hey, the NCAA isn't the governing body over the JUCO level, so that should not count as eligibility. And so the NCAA is sued right back, and now it's kind of at a standstill. But at least for this upcoming season, next year, both for football and for basketball, all players that played at the JUCO level, at the NAIA level, whichever one of those levels that isn't governed by the NCAA, is allowed to have at least one extra season. And J.C. Davis is one of those players. I'll be honest, guys. To me, this is the biggest pickup of the offseason. This is one of those where I was starting to somewhat get nervous. I will tell you this. Once the Pavia rule started looking like it was going to become something, Illinois did kind of ease off on some of the left tackle options that we have. In fact, I do think there was a guy who was ready to commit to the Illini, but because we were open and upfront with them about what, hey, look, if JC's going to come back, that's our guy. He finished all Big Ten, third team last season. And, he knows that he understands the system. If he wants to come back, we're going to bring him back. And so, this other player who has not committed anywhere, it doesn't look like he's going to become an Illini now. And that's okay, because left tackle was the biggest glaring hole on this football team. And for all the weapons that we're bringing Luke Altmaier, for all the talk that I myself have been saying about how good that running back room looks, how good that wide receiver room looks, and how important it is to surround Luke Altmaier with all those weapons, it doesn't matter if there's nobody to cover the Luke blind side. And, having JC come back, a guy who would have been maybe a late day 2, day 3 NFL draft pick. Brett Bielema went over there a couple days before Christmas to meet with JC and the family and talk to him and be like, hey, look, you have a very important decision ahead of you, but this ruling, or this, the court ruling, has never happened before, and you might have an opportunity now to have one more year of development. I make offensive linemen. There's no one in college football who's churned out more offensive linemen than Brett Bielema. Give me another year. And it looks like the message worked. And J.C. Davis is coming back. And I'm telling you, When it comes to the offense, I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm now because you're talking about a veteran offense. We're all 5 offensive linemen, starting offensive linemen, are now going to be returning. And we were one of the better offensive teams already in the Big Ten Conference. So let's switch over to the defensive side. On Sunday, before the basketball game started, Xavier Scott, Illini defensive back, announced that he is also returning to the Illini. So at this point, we're just waiting on one more guy. Xavier Scott started 24 games in his 3-year Illini career. Again, it's just, and he was all Big Ten. First team by the media selection this past offseason. Again, it's a huge, the defensive back room is one which I'm also optimistic about. And here I am catching myself again. I'm optimistic about everything, which I've never said that before when it comes to Illini football. But that's why I can do these shows with a smile on my face nowadays, because I genuinely believe it. Xavier Scott, just having another veteran presence, arguably, I say not arguably, no, arguably, our best defensive back in that backfield returning. Matthew Bailey coming back, Caleb Patterson coming back, Torrey Cox coming back. A lot of the guys who, captained that defensive backfield, they're all returning, which seems to be a theme for this football team next year. This Illinois football team won 10 games in 2024, and they're returning. It could be, I think I counted 18 starters coming back. This is a team that's going to be reckoned with next year as well. It's a team that, I might be saying this with a little bit of bias, but should be a top 20, if not top 15 ranking coming into next year. And guess what? That schedule is not very intimidating. 2024 was a very special year for the Illini. But with J.C. Davis coming back, with Xavier Scott coming back, essentially all we're waiting for is Gabe Jacas to make a decision. And I did reach out to somebody, and they're telling me it's about 60-40 he's going to the NFL. So it's not locked in stone. I was pretty confident that Xavier Scott was coming back. I was very 50-50 on whether J.C. Davis was going to. It sounds to me like Gabe is slightly leaning towards going to the NFL. But who knows? A conversation can be had between the coaching staff and Gabe. Gabe might just see all these guys returning before him and decide, hey, let's run this back one more time. And if they do, like I was saying, 2024 was a special season for the Illini. But 2025 has a chance to be even more special. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you check to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Despite football season being over, we are still waiting for one more announcement, and that's the Gabe Jacas announcement. Hopefully it comes sometime this week. If it does, I'll go live immediately afterwards, just kind of talking a little bit about getting all 3 of our all Big Ten performers possibly back for the football team. But let's switch the conversation over a little bit to the basketball side now. Obviously, the Illini with a very impressive victory over not very impressive. A victory is a victory against Washington on Sunday, but a much more impressive victory against Oregon last Thursday. As of this recording, the new rankings have not come out, but I want to bring on, of course, as I'm going to do for the next few Mondays, bring on JR from the Big Ten Huddle. JR, thanks for coming on.
Of course, it's an exciting time for Illinois basketball. That win over Oregon. We don't have to talk too much about the Washington game. You got the win there, so that's just move on.
We have a mantra on the show: a win is a win is a win. It's funny.
Yes.
People are actually now tweeting that back at me after I've been kind of saying that all off season or football season long, and I've kind of transitioned that over to the basketball side. But JR, again, you are our Big Ten basketball guru. Week 1, you had Illinois at the top. Week 2, unfortunately, we were no longer at the top. I guess we'll save the spoiler for later. Let's start from the bottom up when it comes to the Big Ten. Because now at this point, everyone's played, 4 games or so.
Yep.
So you're kind of starting to see who's who within this conference. Let's start from the bottom and let's go up.
Okay, you just stop me whenever you want. Last place, and this team will be in last place pretty much the entirety of the year. Minnesota, then you have USC, Rutgers, Washington. Even though they did get that win over Maryland, I still am keeping them down there in the bottom 4. Ohio
You know what? Hey,
State.
Jared, actually, let's just talk about Washington for a second, just because I agree with you, and I kind of said the same thing in the preview episode that I didn't think that this should be too much of a sweat because I think Washington was one of the worst teams in the conference, but they beat Maryland, who I think is a very good top 7 or 8 basketball team in the conference, and they took Illinois to its limits, with basically seconds left. Is there a chance that we both might be just off on Washington?
Well, I've actually been a little bit higher on Washington lately, and so it does kill me. I can't move them up in my power rankings, but I can't move them up over Northwestern. Northwestern has the win over Illinois. They were able to get that done, and I'm not trying to remind you guys of that, but they were able to get that done. Yeah. Washington was not. That was a game that Washington could have got the win, but they were not able to. Washington is improving, though. This is a Danny Sprinkle team that I thought had a likelihood to be last place in the Big Ten this year. I was expecting it was probably going to be either Washington, USC, or Minnesota, and I've been pleasantly surprised by Danny Sprinkle and what he's done with this team. He's repositioned his offense, his starting lineup. He's using Great Osibor in some great ways, pun intended there. He is also utilizing Zoom Diallo in a role that he wasn't used to at the beginning of the season, but now he's kind of embraced it, and DJ Davis has really come on as a shooter for this team. So
yeah, you think we know that part. He turned into Steph Curry on Sunday.
Right, exactly. So, and like you saw this against the Washington State game, which was brutal from the beginning for the offense. It was just ugly. I mean, when you saw this change happen to the starting lineup, you're like, is this really the best decision? And then you saw the transformation in the second half when Washington was just able to demolish Washington State, and now they found their offensive rhythm and scored 77 points on Illinois, which has been a very good defense so far this season. So you're seeing this Washington team actually be able to do a very good job of beating Maryland, who, I always kind of thought, like, are they really all that good of a team? They have, some wins, but are they really? And then you have them taking Illinois down to the wire, only a 4-point game in that one. And I am impressed. I haven't seen enough to move them out of the bottom 4 yet.
Fair enough. So where did you stop off?
I had Washington, and then Northwestern, Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State. They moved down quite a bit after that loss to Indiana, who I do have above them in Indiana, Wisconsin, Maryland, Nebraska, Purdue, Oregon, UCLA, and then you want to talk about any of those before I get to the top 3?
Let's just do the top 3 because I want to talk about Illinois, wherever they end up in your top 3.
Okay, good news. They're first.
All right.
Third, I have Michigan, and second, I have Michigan State.
So, again, we are all Illini fans, and so most of my audience listens to Illini content creators. You cover the entire Big Ten Conference. Was the victory on Thursday night as impressive to you, as excited as we were? I had over 300 people in the live chat at midnight of the post-game show of that Oregon game. So, the Illini Nation was excited. Tell us a little bit from like a non-biased point of view.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois really showcased everything in their arsenal in that one. Illinois is up to, I believe, 5th in the net right now. I believe they are 8th in the KenPom. Sometimes I look at all those numbers. Sometimes it gets hard to delineate between all of them. But they've just had a fantastic rise ever since winning that game against Oregon, which obviously you should, because Oregon, their only loss this year was on a buzzer beater to UCLA. For them to go into Oregon, the cross-country trip that so many people were dreading and talking about how it's going to be a terrible thing, for Illinois to come in, have a slow start, right? They went down 0-7 in that game, and then to come back, hit 7 of 9 3-pointers in the last 10 minutes of that first half. They were able to do so much on Oregon's floor, and Oregon just never had an answer for them. And it was exactly what I thought of this Illinois team, which is this Illinois team playing at their best possible, final form, whatever you want to call it. They are a top 5 team in college basketball. And I think in this Oregon game, you saw their best, but I felt like the scariest thing for the Big Ten was you saw areas where they could have been a little bit better too. So you've seen their best this season, but I still think you can see more out of this Illinois team.
Yeah, I feel like I repeat myself. I've said this on the show. JR, you and I have had private conversations, where I say something very similar. Like, I feel like we got a good glimpse of this Illinois team this past weekend on that trip. You can beat one of the top 10 teams in the country and it not being even close. As you mentioned, like, I think we had 16 points with 10 minutes left in the first half. And then we scored 3 points per minute from that point on till the game was over. But
like
then,
I said, 7 for 9, that helps from 3-point
range. Right. And then, 3 days later, we play a team that not nearly as talented as Oregon, but all of a sudden the 3-pointers don't start falling. And, you have a couple of sloppy turnovers, and it's a game that goes very much till the end. And, I had talked about this a lot on my post-game show. For me, it's important because I got a lot of Northwestern vibes from this game. I had gotten a lot of Tennessee vibes from this game. And this entire season for me is to slowly watch the growth of this Illinois team. And for me, having that victory against Washington and being able to close it out lets us put that Northwestern game in the rearview mirror, right? Tennessee in the rearview mirror. It's nice that we have a guy who we can give the ball to. And now we've shown that, hey, the team has learned to win. And that's just about the whole learning process. I talked to you in the out-of-conference schedule. I thought that we would lose some games that I thought we should have won early in the year. That didn't really end up happening. We still ended up, I think, 9-3 or 10-3 at the time. But it's January when I really could count on Brad Underwood to turn into Brad Underwood, and he very rarely loses in this month. And you saw that game against Oregon on Thursday, where I think we could have beaten anybody that night. You could have put Auburn in front of us that night, and Illinois would have won. But, again, on the other side, it's why, as we do this segment every single week, even when we're talking about some of the lower-rated teams, which we're about to in the next segment, there's no easy win for Illinois just because they are so young. They're the youngest team in the conference. They might have the highest ceiling, but with youth sometimes comes problems.
Right, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with the growth part there, right? You look back at the Northwestern game and the issues there that occurred. Well, you saw a team that had similar issues in this Washington game be able to gut out a gutsy win, a gutsy performance there at the end. And sometimes that's what you have to do in college basketball. You just have to win ugly. Maybe you're not there completely that night. And for you to come off, 3 days later after having everything there for you the night before, it would have been really easy for this team just to get frustrated, get down on themselves, start blaming each other. But I think that this is a testament to Brad Underwood and his coaching as well, that his players did not do that. And you're exactly right. They are starting to learn to win. And I think that it's huge to talk about how teams not just learn to win, but also learn to win together. Because just because you put somebody who's won a championship on a team before doesn't mean that they are going to know how to learn to win with the other players on that team. It's something that you have to do together as a team. Obviously, it's one of the reasons why we love team sports, and it just brings everything together.
All right, right after this, we're going to go over the schedule for this upcoming week. There's one team in particular, I believe we play on Wednesday, who I'm a little higher on than JR. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, welcome back. So on the third segment of every Monday, just for a simple reminder, Jared's coming on, and we're going to preview the Illini schedule for the upcoming week. And on Wednesday, Illinois will be playing a team that I really like. It's a team that, JR, I think I actually went on your show when we watched Penn State beat up on Purdue. And I think I was on the Big Ten Huddle immediately after, and we kind of talked about that game. The team impressed me there. Mike Rhodes, I think, has got a really good thing going there. I think they're a team that in a year or two is going to be a team the rest of us have to kind of worry about. But as you kind of mentioned, on Sunday, they had a disappointing second half against the Indiana Hoosiers, ultimately falling short. Tell me a little bit about Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State, they're who Mike Rhodes is, right? Hard-nosed defensive team who, when they get their offense going, they're really tough to beat because they are going to bring the defense every single time you play them. They're going to play aggressive defense. They're going to play a defense that is in your face and really is going to challenge your ball handlers. And that's ultimately what happened to Purdue in that game is Ace Baldwin really challenged Braden Smith in a whole lot of ways. And the down-low presence of Penn State was just better than Purdue in that game. Now, I do think that Purdue has figured out some of those issues, so I don't know if that same game would happen again. They kind of got punched in the mouth a little bit, and Matt Painter is too good of a coach to continue to allow those things to happen. But credit to Mike Rhodes with being able to come in that game and deliver the blow that he did. Now, do I think that will happen to Illinois the same way? No, not really, because I think Illinois is too much of an all-around team to let that happen. I think that Kasparis Yakonis is too good of a ball handler to allow Ace Baldwin to just kind of take away. Ace Bailey's on a completely different team. Too many aces in this conference. But I think he's too good of a ball handler to let Ace Baldwin just completely take him away. But I would not be surprised if KJ does struggle a little bit more in this game, and you look to a Trey White, Kylan Boswell, somebody like that, to really make an impact scoring for this team. This could be a good game for Visic. The Penn State Niederhaus, their big man, has done a good job this season, but I'm not sure he's seen as versatile of a big like Visic so far this year, so that could be a huge problem for him. At the end of the day, really this will come down to being able to beat Penn State's defense, because if you can beat Penn State's defense, you can find Penn State in some inopportune times on offense, because typically their defense is what fuels their offense. But Illinois is going to have to be very meticulous in trying to do that. It's not just going to be three-point shooting. You're going to have to do a lot of things right against this Penn State team.
And one advantage that Illinois has that Purdue really doesn't is they have that secondary ball handler. Like, even if Ace Baldwin decides to try to bottle up KJ, well, we have another more natural point guard in Kylan Boswell, who, has played point guard in college basketball before, and he'd be playing point guard for 98% of the teams in the country. So, like you said, I think we're a much better matchup for Penn State than Purdue was. I think Penn State's strengths just kind of go against Purdue's weaknesses. It's a game I'm looking forward to. This is not going to be an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. I think Penn State ultimately is going to finish somewhere in the middle of the pack, which is a big surprise because, you may correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they were picked last, I believe, in the Big Ten preseason media poll.
I believe they were, yes.
Again, the job that Mike Rhodes is doing there this year, I know that's just a team that Illinois is going to have to deal with in the future. And I don't like that because that's one of the teams that Illinois has historically struggled with. Me, as a Bears fan, we finally just got over the Green Bay Packers hump on Sunday, but I really do think like the last time we beat the Penn State basketball team was like 1,000 days ago or something like that. So there's something, some kind of bugaboo that Penn State has over Illinois basketball that we can't get over.
One more thing, really fast.
Yeah.
I think the difference with this Illinois team is the defense, though. That's what Clemson did to this Penn State team. They turned Penn State over. Now, I know, Illinois has not been great with getting steals this season, but they played much better defense, and I think it could put pressure on this Penn State team to where maybe you don't see a bunch of steals for the Illinois team, but you might see some self-inflicted turnovers because Penn State has not been completely, absent from those this season. That has happened to them as well. Like I said, their defense is going to fuel their offense.
All right, Jared, we don't have much time left, but can you give us maybe a cliff notes of what we should expect to see with the USC?
USC, I mean, they have some good players. Obviously, Eric Musselman is a good coach. They're kind of all over the place a little bit with how they've performed this season. They've had some good performances. They played Michigan well in the second half of that game, but they've also had some stinkers as well where they're playing teams that they should obviously be better than, and they're not doing so well. So they've really struggled to score points in the paint this season. That's been a big thing for them. I don't see that being rectified against this Illinois team. They're just too good on defense. But like I said, Eric Musselman's a good enough coach that if he's going to be able to get a team to play up for a big game, it's going to be him that's going to be able to do it. But like I said, this USC team, it just doesn't feel like they have the talent to be that spoiler team consistently. They might be able to do it every now and then, but from what I've seen from USC this year, Illinois will lose this game if they beat themselves, and that's the only way it'll happen. I don't think it'll come from USC beating Illinois.
Unfortunately, as we saw against Washington, that can happen. So it
can happen with any team. It can happen with any team.
Exactly. Jared, of course, I appreciate you coming on. Can you let the folks know where they can find your work?
Yeah, the Big Ten Huddle. Check us out over on the football side. It's the Big Ten Huddle podcast, and then there's also a basketball channel you can check out as well. Just subscribe to both of them because you love both sports, right? That's why we do both of them. So episodes with me and Zach twice a week, and then basketball episode at least once per week. We try to do twice as often as we can, but you'll get game recaps and all that other kind of stuff from me as well, just single videos. So check us out.
Appreciate you, Jared. See you next week.
See ya. Thanks.
And that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Illini. Again, I know vibes are good. We're feeling good about the football team. We're feeling good about the basketball team. Just make sure you're subscribed to this channel. As of Sunday night, when I last checked, 63.6 people of you that are watching this video are not subscribed. Let's change that. It costs you guys absolutely nothing. And trust me, it helps channels like mine grow immensely. Google and their algorithm and all that fun stuff. We've got a packed week of content for you. We're going to have Mike Carpenter on the show. We're going to be talking about the highs and lows of 2024 and make some predictions for 2025. And of course, I'm going to have a game preview for Penn State, USC, and just a lot of content, both on the football side and the basketball side. So make sure you don't miss anything. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.